how important is detoxing? What sort of things are maybe some of the best ways to do that? And you hear a lot about a spring detox or winters is something that we need to continually do, though, instead of just a seasonal thing.
Well, the seasonal stuff, and I have a old medical school friend who's written a book on this detoxing with the seasons. I think it's a refinement and it's beautiful, and yet on a more my approach would be different in this regard. That if we think that toxicity is an issue, right from the get-go, we take various steps to help people with toxicity. And sometimes it's a more gradual process. You don't want to throw someone into too vigorous a detox, because when we're talking about detox, we're talking about toxins that are deep in their cells, and even their bones in their brain.
Hmm.
They're sequestered away there because the body realizes that these are poisonous, and the body places a high premium on not sending too much poison through the kidneys, which are very sensitive to poisons and can be damaged by it. So it sequesters it. A lot of these toxins are fat soluble, so they wind up in the fat tissue. And one of the major fat tissues in our body is our brain. There's a lot of fat in our brain, and you want to be awfully cautious about all of a sudden detoxing someone, because if you do it too rapidly, these toxins mobilize, are floating around the blood, hitting the kidneys, and people get sick.
Okay.
So one of the cardinal ba basic rules in detoxing someone is you do so at a pace that their body can handle. And one of my views on that is, if they're getting sick in the process, if they're having a body,